Good morning, Rick.
Good morning.
So I love your vest today. Yeah, fireworks are one of my favorite things. Did you know that?
Fireworks.
Yes.
There's always fireworks coming out of my mouth. You know what I'm like.
Oh, you know what? We all are a little bit sparky. So I showed up in my pajamas instead of trying to do full glam. I did a little bit of glam, and I've got my fancy pajamas on. So I may do this every week since we're morning show, since it's early morning for me.
And yet you still look better than me. And I've had an hour at trying to buff my head and get
Stop
myself
it.
all shaved and get rid of the whiskers and all of that sort of stuff. And I still look. We were speaking about spammers and things like that the other week, weren't we? Well, one of the comments that was made was that I was an alien with a humanoid suit. So I thought I'd play up to it now. Look, I've got my head all shiny now and I've got this luminescent glow coming off me. So I am a shapeshifter.
Ooh, okay. I like, someone accused you of being a shapeshifter, or
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Humanoid. Sorry, what was it? It was a mechanoid with a human's exterior on. This guy is definitely an alien. A working class skinhead. Just got loads thrown at me, and I'm sat there. And if the aim was to throw me off, which is what normally happens when I'm dealing with anything to do with spammers and energy jammers, as I call them, it had the opposite effect because I just sat there laughing. I just thought it was really funny. And even after, when I take all of the crap comments off, I still found it really funny. Yeah, all right then. I'm a shapeshifter.
I can't believe someone would call you a working class skinhead. And I'm going to be honest, like when I was a punk rocker, because we're approximately the same age. When I was a punk rocker, the skinheads that went to the punk rock clubs were always the spiffiest. Like they were always like super. I don't know, like what they were like in the UK. I mean, like I know the band Screwdriver had a lot of questionable songs. But the skinheads that were here in the United States were a little bit different. They were more of like what we're looking at, like the conservative right now here in America. They were like they would go to work, but they were really spiffy. They all had polished boots. I remember that. Like I was like, oh wow, they have like really polished boots. Of course they requisite Doc Martens, but I had them too. I still have them. So, so you had a good weekend? We were talking offline before.
Yeah. In the front garden therapy room. We live in the middle of an old RAF estate, so you kind of like regimented in how the setup is on the estate. And gradually, what we've done is we've realised that we're not moving anywhere. So we've been here nearly 22 years. And we've just gradually started digging up places and put a greenhouse in and a patio. And I've made a bench out of scaffolding boards during COVID, so that it's now a place where you can go out there and work, but you can also just sit. And we were talking a lot about the energies about sometimes just sitting in that place of meditation and sitting in your power. Well, I've also had the front window chopped out and had patio doors put in the front, so that when I come down in the morning and I'm sat in my chair, the first thing that I look at is the greenhouse, the flowers, and the beds, and all of that sort of work.
Those of you that don't know what it looks like, I mean, Rick and I are friends on our private channels too. His garden is lovely. It is lovely, and I'm so jealous of Mrs. P's greenhouse, because we're on just over an acre and I really want a greenhouse, but we don't know where we're going to plug it in. So eventually we will get one. But there's a house not far from me that has this beautiful greenhouse, and I looked it up online. I think it was $25,000. I was like, oh, that's so cute. And then I looked it up and I was like, it's not that cute.
Yeah. Once we gold plated with butler service for that amount of money.
Yeah, I mean it's beautiful, but it's got like a roof that pops up, the whole thing. But So I'm glad you had a great weekend. We had a busy weekend. My son's band came in #1 once again, and he's featured all over the place on the competition's social media. So everybody in my family saw him and they were like, oh, as he's getting older, he's looking more and more like you. And I'm like, shh, don't tell him that because he doesn't want to look like his mom.
Oh, do yourself a disservice.
Who wants to look like their mom? What teenage boy said, oh yeah, I look like my mom. He just wants to be his own person. So, but yeah, it was a great weekend. I went to bed early last night. Like I said, I came in with Duran Duran hair today. And so I don't know if you're seeing this in the chat. Wifey, wife of a grumpy Marine, she's in the hospital right now.
Oh no!
Yeah, and we're not sure. Yeah, we're not sure what's going on with her just yet. It was on the Discord, and everybody's chatting about her. So we'll do a little bit of love for her in here. I'm gonna do some magic for her. So, guys, throw up some magic in the chat for wifey that she gets out soon. And Samantha, of course, is still in the hospital. She was on the Hutch's feed last night. I think she's doing okay, but she's stuck in the hospital. So I told her, I said, stay there as long as they keep you there. And here in America, I was listening to somebody on the radio the other day, and they said in America, if you're not dead, it was Joseph Magi said it wasn't the radio. He said, if you're not dead, they kick you out of the hospital here in America. So it's not untrue. So if they're letting her stay there, I think that's a good thing. And I said the same thing about Catherine, Princess of Wales. I said, if they're letting her stay there for the 14 days after the surgery, she should just stay put and be happy with it and not have anybody judge. So today, what are we talking about today?
Spirit guides and your spiritual and topping up your spiritual toolbox. And we're also looking at personal experiences, because the thing about all of the work, and I've said this to you many times before on and off camera, is I'm not sitting here as any sort of expert. There's no part of me that's going to say I'm somebody you need to follow. I come at it from the perspective of I was just an ordinary guy, come out of the prison service with no idea what path my future was going to take, no idea whatsoever. And everything that has happened since 2013, when I walked out that gate, has been a series of synchronicities. So what I aim to do when I'm working, I've said to you, I don't consider myself as a teacher yet, but what I've experienced is worth listening to, because what I've found that it can do with a lot of people that I've spoke to about this spiritual journey is put them in the place of just going, oh, I've had that. Oh yeah, is that what that means? And I want to demystify it, because I looked at one of the comments on there from Grumpy Sapper that was saying that he's not experienced a spirit guide. Now then, have you or haven't you? Now, if you'd have spoke to me 10 years ago when I walked out of the prison service, I would say, no, I've not experienced anything like that. But now when I look back in retrospect, you would not believe how much spiritual experiences I've had. And the truth is, I didn't know, because I've got an analytical mind. And this is the thing about working with spirit. You need to find something for your analytical thinking mind to do, right? Send it off. We were just talking about one of my dreams last night, and I know I went out of body with this, and you can all sit and have a laugh at my expense here, because it's true as I sit here with my cup of tea, that last night I was in an in-depth discussion with somebody about why I was no longer obsessed with the Smurfs, right? And I wasn't me, right? I wasn't me. It was kind of like flying above, still feeling whatever timeline that I was in there. But I can assure you, I have had no affiliation with the Smurfs. I'm not really sure what Gargamel was playing a part of, but that was my dreams. And this is all spirit-led this morning, because as we sit here talking to you guys, I've now got somebody with me, and I know it's a gentleman's energy. And as I explained to Annabelle before I even started, that was singing Buddy Holly songs, right? Yeah. I like Buddy Holly. but I'm not like a super fan, so it wouldn't have any relevance to me in my analytical mind. But that's just a brief example of what we're going to be discussing today.
So, it's so funny that I was obsessed with the Smurfs when I was a kid, because my family was fairly, poor. A single mom until my stepdad, who I call my dad, came into my life when I was like 11. But I had a friend named Amy. She was one of my best friends. I'm still friends with her. And she had an amazing collection of Smurfs. We had these little Smurf figurines. And I was so envious because she had like this whole village, and I was just like, oh, and I remember the way they smelled. Like I had like a few, but she had like this huge collection. And like every now and then on my Facebook, she puts up like a Smurf post, and she's like, I know you loved my Smurfs. I'm like, oh my God. So it's like all I could do to not like purchase like the whole Smurf thing. And we were talking about being a little nostalgic. Like I have my 1970s McDonald's cup that my sister-in-law got me. So I'm kicking it off this morning. Grumpy Sapper says, little mushroom houses. Gregopedia has a whole thing about like Smurfette and what her purpose was, because mushrooms really spore to make more. And so Smurfette was like this. He's got this whole thing about Smurfette. So yeah, we'll have to ask him when he's up and at him.
We're just gonna have to sit here now. We're humming the tune, aren't we? La 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 la. Oh no, it's gone. It's going again.
So, and I sent over a quick message to a couple of our friends, our other friends on Instagram, to see if they're gonna pop on too. But so let's talk about spirit guides. So, I'm one of those people that I was always a little cautious about like an official spirit guide, like someone who is assigned to us, but I've gotten much warmer to it in the last, I don't know, 10 years, where, you have that one or two guides that kind of step in and kind of hold your hand and lead the way. And they're the voice in the back of your head. What is it like for you, Rick? Do you actually have like a manager or like a managing director? Do you have like a spiritual managing director?
Right. Yeah. I think it's all about words and how you sense. There's various different ways of sensing it, but I'm very literal, and I like to keep things simple so I don't have to overcomplicate it when I'm trying to explain something back. So when I went into my first sort of development class, we spoke to various different mediums and various different ways of perceiving energy and exercises and things like this. And then when I've come the other side of it all, I've come to this conclusion. This is what I've drawn up. I'm not saying this is fact, but this is how I perceive it, that we get two main guides, right? One is called the gatekeeper, who's like your keeper of the keys type of thing, that decides what road you're going to go down. You will go there, and then you will have an assistant guide or a chief guide that will accompany you on that journey. So your gatekeeper is your protector, and they're assigned to you before you even get here. So you've got two main guides that work with you from the moment that you're conceived to the moment that you pass. Now, all of the people in the comments that are on here, where they're saying, oh, it could be feeling like this or feeling like that, or it might be, there was one comment there about drunken sense of humor or something like that. Right. If it's somebody that has lived a life down here already, what I call them, and no disrespect to them whatsoever, is they're your cheerleaders. They're your backup crew. They're the ones that come in and they will show you. So you'll get animal guides that will come in past animals that you've had and things like that. But the key to recognizing that when you're working with their energy is ask them, if you're reading for somebody else, to take a step back or to take a step to the side. Because you imagine the glee from your cheerleading crew that sees you working in a spiritual manner, and they all come flying in towards you, right? And again, this is no disrespect to anybody watching this. This is how I've had to learn that if you're reading for somebody else, what your nan, what your granddad, whatever else thinks about the situation is irrelevant, because all they're there for is you. Right, so I asked them to step to one side. My granddad often works with me in the sense of when I've got discipline to bring him through, because he was an army sergeant major, but he is not my guide. Right, so my guide, I'm working with new guides at the moment, and what I call them are transitory guides. So imagine that you've agreed to learn lessons as you've come onto this pathway. Your guide and your gatekeeper are your static crew, but then you will get other ones that come in for you that will help you learn the lessons that you've chosen to learn. So if you think about having a blueprint before you even get to this earth plane, on there we write ourselves a set of instructions, and then we agree with the higher ups, whoever they might be, that that is the pathway, albeit for a few tiny quirks, because we can't account for everything. And then we agree, we pick our parents, we pick our pathways. But the thing is, before we start on that pathway, we have a mind wipe. Our energy is so that we are learning blind. So when people go, oh, I've just got this feeling, I've just had, right. The reason is because you've put it there. It's kind of like your clue as to where to go. So when you get repetitive things coming in, there's usually a reason for that. And if you notice about your life and synchronicities, if you've had a difficulty with something, there's usually a lesson that's come out of that particular thing. So if you learn the lesson the first time, you don't have to learn it the second time. But whatever happens, and I promise this to be true, I've been having difficulties with my head, as I call it, depression and one thing and another. Your guides never leave you. Right, they never leave you. So all of these people that say to me, oh, you know, I think my gift's gone or anything like that. No, what they do is they take a step back to allow you to process whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're thinking. They're in the background. Your guides will come in whenever you call for them. But all I would say to people with this, I'm quite passionate about this, is if you book an appointment with Spirit to say that you're going to do meditation or you're going to sit down in your own personal power, then turn up and do your side of the bargain, because they will never ever let you down. Anyway, I feel like I've gone on my soapbox a bit there, but
no, that's okay. So Amanda had a question. Is the gatekeeper typically an ancestor? So I don't think that has to be an ancestor that we've had in this lifetime, but for you, the way you frame your gatekeeper, is that the person that you sit down with and you discuss, you know, who your parents are going to be and all that? Is it someone who has a vested interest with your energetic spirit at some point?
Right. So I'm gonna answer that as usual. Just go slightly off path with it.
That's okay. We do that the infinity sign when we answer questions.
So if you think about your psychological, logical thinking brain, right? It needs a format. It needs an answer so that it can understand and process. The subconscious, which is where we're working when we're working spiritually, doesn't require an answer. It doesn't require form. It just accepts anything that you program in there. So the way that I could manage that, of saying, right, I need to come out of my thinking mind, is to say that the guide and the gatekeeper I sat down, because I'm not very strong with meditation. I really struggle to sit down in that environment, and I get quite itchy because of the PTSD and one thing and another. So I came up with this, where I spoke to Spirit and somebody says, oh, you should know who your guides are and all of this sort of thing. So I sat there one day for about 15 or 20 minutes in the dark, and I asked for my guide to step forward. And this was in the very early days with all of it. And I asked if they could step forward. And the answer that come through really, really quickly was, what is it that you would like us to be? So there's a lot of people have come to me and said, how do I know if my guide's a Native American Indian, an angel, or anything like that? The chances are that you are lacking confidence in your spiritual work. So Spirit, in their infinite wisdom, because they know we need substance, will allocate you any vision you want. So mine was, I know what a wolf is. So the wolf then started telling me this little story, gave himself a name, gave himself a place where he was, and all of this sort of thing. Now, whether it was true, and this is the bit that I still don't know the answer to, or whether it was appeasement for me, who needed a storyline to say, that's a wolf, you know, that's a cup. I can understand that. But if somebody just says to you, I'm a spirit form, I'm in energy, and I'm working for you for the highest and greatest good and upliftment, and you will progress, your thinking head's going to go, oh, now, what part do I play in it? But if you just accept that guide or that energy is working with you, they will show themselves to you in whatever form that you can comprehend.
Yeah, I had an experience, and TD Tarot Destiny. I actually had a discussion with her because I was kind of freaked out by it. My spirit guides have always been very audible, not super visual. And I mean that in super visual, like, seeing that in my mind's eye, in my spirit form. But I always heard them talking to me and having discussions, and I wasn't, it was more of like meeting the CEO of a very large company. I was just kind of like respectful and like, okay, and I'm not gonna take up too much of your time, just kind of lead me to where I need to go, point me to my desk. But I did a meditation, and I'm terrible at meditation too. I'm much better at active meditation, and it's one of the things that I like about Joe Dispenza is he has walking meditations that you can do. So you're not just kind of sitting there, like in your own nonsense. Like I would do some great meditating when I was running at the beach. When I'm doing dishes, I do great meditating. But this particular one was, closed eyes, laying down, and I saw almost myself in reflection. And it was like I was looking into a mirror, and I saw my eyes. I know what my eyes look like. I got to do my makeup every day. And as I started to pull back, the whole picture started to change. And it was actually a Native American. And I'm not one of those spiritual people that has like this weirdo affinity with Native Americans. Here in America, we went through, I guess it was the beginning of the 90s, the end of the 80s. Like everyone had like Southwest decorated houses, and like nothing bothers me more than people that decorate their house that's not congruent to where they live. So you can't have a seashore bathroom in Kansas. I'm sorry, you just can't. I think that's bizarre. But everybody did this Southwestern thing, and I never jumped on it. I never like got into that. And I never, locked into that Native American thing. And like, I have lots of books on, shamanism and Native American stuff. And I have my animal cards that are in here, which are all based on Native American myth. But as I pulled back, it was this Native American, and it was so bizarre. And it was so clear. And it like still had my eyes. Like it was very, very strange. And I called TD and I was like, what do I make out of this? It's so weird. And she was like, that's one of your guides. You need to have Congress with that guide. And I'll be honest, I haven't done the work. I haven't sat down and like really had a discussion with this guy and been like, well, what are we doing? I don't know if it's my gatekeeper. I don't know if it's my assistant. I don't know if it's transitory. Maybe, look like me. Maybe it's some kind of person that I was involved with. Maybe it's somebody I'm going to be involved with. I don't know. But it speaking of the guides taking a step back, this is one that I felt took a step forward. And at this point in my life, I don't know. My parents would probably say differently, but I am not really a fighter, but I can be very adamant about things. And politely so. I've done that in my corporate job. I do it in my personal life, but there are some times that I should upshift, and I don't. And I'm wondering if that's what that guide is coming to tell me, that maybe I should not be so polite.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this, and you know, like I'm not trying to get free work out of you or anything, but what does spirit tell you about my guides? Because I know my grandmother shows up. Although my grandmother passed away a number of years ago, you know, it was not. I shouldn't say not. It was, I think, 2017 or 18. She passed away, and she was my Italian grandmother. She taught me how to cook. You know, God bless her. But she was not like that sweet, snuggly grandma with us. You know, my mother, because she was a single mom when we were younger, my grandmother took care of us. You know, she had us all summer. So I think we were more of a burden after raising 3 girls on her own. And she got 2 more, you know, that she had to raise. So I think it was more of a burden. My other cousins had a much better dose of her because they lived in Pennsylvania and they would come out only infrequently. But there was a second set of cousins from my 2 aunts that were younger, and they had a totally different experience with our grandmother. Like totally different experience. Like she was really cuddly and hugged them and was fun. And I will see her sometimes when I'm cooking. My sink is to the right of my stove. I'll be cooking and I'll see her hand go on to the sink. And I know she's looking at me and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And like, that's the thing. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. Honestly, I'm going to put this out there. I'm the best cook out of all the granddaughters. I'm the best one. So I think that was, that was time well spent that she put into me. But so I know she is around. I know my grandfather, who passed away when I was 10, he's on my couch sometimes. He hangs out. I know he keeps an eye on me. But what does spirit tell you about my spirit guides? Like, should I stop being so polite? Should I get in the conference room with them and have a discussion? Okay.
Oh yeah, right. Just linking in, right. And for those that are watching, don't think that this is any voodoo, because I'm all very much aware with how my mental health had been, that if you said that I'm sat here listening to voices, then obviously that's a concern for a medical professional. But as Annabelle put out there, when we're talking about seeing, hearing, sensing, it's all going on in the third eye chakra, right? So I was asked a question there. I kind of stepped back myself as the logical, analytical thinking person that I am. And the one thing that you've always, I'm really passionate about this one as well, that you've got to have with spirit when you're working with your guides is trust. Without that, you go nowhere. So I put this out, and as I explained on one of them last week, my process is quite strange how I get to answering the question. So I'm going to test people's knowledge here a little bit. So this is for the older ones. In the mid-80s, there used to be, there was a film, quite cheesy film, but it's one I've watched a number of times. And I'm going to tie in the spirit guide here as well as the message that I'm going to deliver to you. So I don't know if you guys remember a film called Mannequin.
Oh, right? I love that movie.
Where he basically fell in love with a shop dummy that had got magical powers, and she turned into a real person. Right. Now, I'm taking that to one side because I'm giving you that reference. In that movie, there was a guy that was the set dresser called Hollywood. Right. Now, Hollywood, for me, forget about the sexuality, I love camp people. Right. I love camp people. Now, I was introduced to a guide like Hollywood while I was in the middle of a demonstration. Right. And my Hollywood is about 7 foot tall, black, right, and wears a dress. Right. Forget about what we think about him, what our logical thinking mind will put a label on him. That's how he presented to me. So I said to him, "What you here for?" And he says, and he sort of went like this. You know, so he's my fashion designer. But for you today, what he's just done is come in. He's holding hands with what I believe is your grandma. Right?
Okay.
Talking about you standing up for yourself, because whoever is stirring the pot, because as soon as you said about stood there when she's got the hand while you're cooking, I was like, bing, 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 jackpot. Right. Whoever is who is stirring the pot needs their ingredient. Okay, thank you for that. Well, right. I was going to say needs certain ingredients removing from them, and this is where I'm hoping it translates across. They need their ass handing to them, right? And their comeuppance is closer than what they realise.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there's
that
an
makes sense.
element of saying that we need a little bit of discipline in where your boundaries are.
Yeah.
And don't be pushed along don't be pushed from it, because the thing is, if people get under your skin and find out that you've got a button that they can press that will get a reaction, they'll do it. They're not bothered about you or your feelings. They're looking for the reaction. So my guide's coming in with a bit of pizzazz, and he's coming in there, and they're talking about, basically you making time to sit in that room with your guides and inspirers, because what I'm sensing is there's another string to your bow coming in, but because you're so busy with things and your mind's on the go constantly, you're only apportioning little bits to it. So what your guide will do is he will allow you to do that. He, she, whatever it is, whatever form, will allow you to do that until you go, actually, right, I need to step forward. They're not testing you or anything like that. They're just waiting for further instruction, because this is where I struggled when I first started developing. When I came into this, it was just like, oh my God, first message I ever delivered, what a buzz, because somebody's saying how brilliant I was and how amazing I was. And I was going, right, okay, thank you. Not quite sure how any of that happened. What happens next? How do we progress along that line? Well, you keep the same enthusiasm. You work with, and you respect the investment that you've invested a life's hour in them. They're going to invest 10 back. So when your guides come in, what they're waiting for is instruction. Now, where I really struggled was when I started with all of this, I got spirit on such a high pedestal. Like, oh my God, if they told me that the moon's made of cheese, I would just go out there and go, oh, thank you for bringing me that tidbit. But I want you all to remember this, if you take nothing else from my ramblings, that spirit usually come in when you're at quite a low ebb, when you're struggling with something, you're in a battle with something, and then you just get this feeling of warmth, somebody coming in to support you, even if it's just a hand on the shoulder to let you know that it's going to be okay. So spirit accepts you at whatever level you're at, right? It's not like I'm not good enough, I can't do it. They accept you at whatever level you're at. What they do then is then gauge your energetic whereabouts you are in your real-time world, and they'll adjust their energy to your frequency. Now, the only thing that we've got to do as the person that's receiving that energy is raise our energy up so that we're at co-pilot level. So in my mind, in my analytical mind, spirit are always the boss, right? What they say comes in, because I'm living a human life, and if I'm interpreting something, there's a very high chance that I could be wrong on something, because it's my interpretation of what they're presenting me. Spirit aren't. They see beyond whatever we can perceive. They sense what's going on down the road, but we've got to kind of catch them up. So instead of having them on like this high frequency and like, oh, I'm worshipping them, we have them on co-pilot level, because I understand that I can't work without them. Make no bones about it. I can't work without them. But also, they've picked me, right? So they've picked me at the level that I'm at. So I might be a bit like, I'm trying to think of the right words. So in regards to, like in our house, my wife has got 3 degrees and is very, very much intelligent. I'm not. I'm kind of like the street smart one. I've had lots of experiences, but I'm not clever book smarts. That's just not me. But spirit have accepted that. So what I've learned to do over these last 10 years is to know me. So if somebody came in with this big biblical quote and says, what, you need to pass on all of this sort of stuff, and I just want you to be that person that passes on these words of wisdom, I won't be able to do that, because I won't be able to remember it and I won't be able to understand what it is. But if I put it back to them and said, right, can you deliver it in a way that I can understand? And they do it pictorially for me. So like in regards to seeing I've got somebody stood there at this big black cauldron, right? I've got somebody stick in this big pot, and it is pot, and it's bubbling, right? And there's lots of different ingredients going in. And to make whatever this stew thing is that's being made takes lots of different ingredients. So at the minute, what's being said about you, Annabelle, is that the recipe is changing.
Yeah, I think so too.
But don't be frightened to like stick the spoon in and have a taste, because there might be adjustments being made. Now, how can I sit here in this room where I am in Lincoln, in my spiritual room, and know that for a fact? Well, truthfully, analytically, I don't. But spiritually, I know I'm bang on or around the right area. So if you think, when you're developing and when you're working, think about a sat nav. So a sat nav, if you put in, I know it's zip codes with you guys, isn't it? If you put a postcode in around us, then it will take you to the right street or the right area. It doesn't take you down the path until you put the number in. So once you start realizing that this is how you sense energy, this is how you work with energy, it might be a memory link from something that you previously experienced. All they want you to do is pass on that message in a way that you can deliver it. So if you're questioned, you turn around and say, right, remember that it's free will of choice whether you accept this message or not. And I might be down your street, but I'm not up your path at the moment. So
yeah. That makes sense.
Then that makes sense then. And then you just give it. The thing is that annoys me, and it really does greatly annoy me with people when they're reading and working, is when they tailor a reading around somebody's responses. This is why I'm quite vocal in what I do, because I want to get off what they're giving me. You can fill in, the client can fill in the background about, the finer pieces of the jigsaw. But as a spiritual conduit, I want to pass on what's being given. So your grandfather, I can't see him, but I can sense that he was, I would describe it in my terms as quite a gruff man, right? In the sense of...
Oh, that's the other one.
Right.
That's the other grandfather. That's the one that passed away at the the turn of the century. He passed away right at the turn of the century. The other grandfather is very, very, very sweet. And he was actually a playwright. So in his spare time. But the Russian side, my father's side of the family, his dad was very gruff. Yeah, he has actually come through a few times, which is really strange.
And that's what I'm hearing at the minute. And the reason that I say this is that this is a prime example. I could now switch my wording to say and build around the words that you've given me, that you fed me, and build a story around that. I won't. I'll stick with what I've got there, because you need the element of discipline, and this is kind of taking that softness away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And oddly enough, my Italian grandmother and my Jewish grandfather kind of cut from the same cloth. So it's not surprising that they're both stepping up. But
allow them into your voice. This is where some people get into this, that we've got a product of being a medium, right? I'm not. I get such a joy out of communicating with other people's energy. So when your guides come in, your guides are already working. So say we sit down and we have a discussion about, I don't know, turning over tarot cards and things like that. Our guides are in a meeting somewhere else doing whatever's needed. So sometimes all we need as spiritual workers, and I'm sure this works for you as well, is to get your bum on the seat.
Yeah.
Right, is so that whatever needs to go on. So the reading might be a sidebar. The reading might not be relevant at that particular time, but when the guides connect together, and this is a moment that you need on your blueprint, then they're already working. So as long as you go away with a little bit of upliftment, sometimes we just need a little bit of mystery about it. Because I've said things. I had a message the other day from somebody who said, well, when I first met you, I didn't think you was any good, because I had a reading with you about 7 years ago. And I thought, what a load of rubbish. And my God, it's all come true. How did you
Yeah.
know? And I went, I didn't.
Yeah.
I just sat there in that moment working with my guides, and that's what they give me. I'm a parrot, right? What I think was no bearing, no relevance. So I gave it, and they went, I can't believe that you've got that bang on. And this is again, I did not get that bang on. I am a working conduit for the energy that's being brought into me. My analytical mind is not needed whatsoever. So very, very long way round. Yes, you need more time in meditation or sitting in your own power or taking that time out for yourself to develop even more. It's not like you're struggling with anything or behind. You've just got to make the time to go that step above.
So I think for me, I very rarely use my guides for myself. Like I don't tap into them for myself. I tap into them for my work and for talking to other people. I know. It's like, and that's the thing, like I'm so busy, and that's like my grandmother. My grandmother, my aunts and my mother would say she would start yelling at the curb because she was a single mom, you know. So she would get home from work and she would start yelling from the curb about what needed to be done and who needed to do what. And I can't imagine trying to manage, 4 young women, and being a single mom back in the 60s, like I can't even imagine what that was like. And I guess I need that kick in the ass, but algorithm be damned. But so that's one of the things that I'm going to do. So what was your first experience with spirit, and like having that conversation with spirit for you? What was that like?
Right. So again, we rewind 2013. I was in the middle of I don't know, life crisis. I think probably the best way of saying it. That I believe that life shows you many different experiences, and as I said before about the lessons. Now I'd seen certain things that had happened to me, how I'd experienced them, how I'd resolved them, and if there was any early signs of something coming back in there. And what I started to see with my prison service career was that I was going down an old path again, which wouldn't show me anything useful whatsoever. So I had to make a decision. Do I want to learn another lesson painfully, or do I want to take a different tact? And I'm not a religious person, but I just put a few words out there, and I just asked for help, right? Because I had the sense that I was revisiting something, but I didn't know who to put this out to. I didn't like people with all the best will in the world will listen to your crap. But eventually, if you don't do anything and take personal responsibility for it, people will tend to start drifting away and want to avoid you. And this is what has been the case in my life. So I wanted better answers than what I previously got. So I made a decision to leave the prison service because I couldn't cope with it anymore. I could have done, literally, because I'd done it for 12 years, but I didn't. I thought there was more to my life than what I was experiencing. So my first experience coming in was actually when I left the prison service and I got away, and I was working on building sites. I, in my infinite wisdom, decided to become a plasterer. And to subsidise my income, I was working on sites, just basic labouring. And in the corner of a garage where I was working one morning stood my granddad. My granddad, when you think about who you would like to come in for you, if you got your cheerleaders coming in for you, he wouldn't have been on the list, right? My granddad was very much seen and not heard generation. Children were to be disciplined, and he was a very odd character, very militaristic in his background, but then he was a sergeant major in the army, so he was used to telling people what to do. So there I am, stood there one morning in the garage, all bleary-eyed, shifting out all of this stuff, and there he is, stood in the corner. And over here we have a little saying called a cadging bag. So cadging is where you scrounge stuff, where you go out and you do a deal. So if you're familiar, anybody's familiar with Del Boy, that he's ducking and diving to get things. My granddad had this amazing art of going out somewhere and coming back with a bag full of stuff. And you go, what you got that for? And it'd come in, it'd be useful. He used to call it a thing of purpose. And you go, what? It will come in useful. So he was always scrounging stuff. So he was stood there in the corner in full spirit form. And to give you an idea of how lucky I was to spot that, over the course of my life, I've seen spirit in literal form about 4 times. Everything else is shadows and energy forms and lights and orbs and all of that sort of thing. But this was full spirit form. He looked at me, he got his traditional cap on, which he always wore wherever he went, turned at me, smiled, and then just disappeared. When I looked back, there was no trace of it. So that presents you with a dilemma, right? If you're an analytical, normal thinking person, as I thought I was, then where do you go with that piece of information? I said to you the other week, I don't have friends as such. I have quite a lot of associates. So who do you go to when you say, well, I've just seen my granddad stood there in that corner. Oh, yeah, that's lovely for you. Yeah, but he's been dead 10 years. Right. I think you need to go to the doctors.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I ended up going to a spiritualist centre, which doubled as a church. It wasn't a church, it was a community centre, and went in there. And that's where the journey started from. But truthfully, to answer that question that you asked me directly, my first experience, I was terrified because I thought I was losing my mind. But what I've realised is that I was at a really low ebb, that I was at that real big crossroads point. And I don't like the terminology crossroads, but the thing was, I didn't know what choices to make. You know, I'd come out of a job that was £30,000, nearly £30,000 a year, even though it's problematic, with all of the security that I could need for an undefined period of time, because I could have stopped there until I retired. But it was just that feeling of, in my heart chakra, in my energy, that I could no longer do this anymore. So spirit provided me with a messenger. And then the message I got from the mediums, the spiritualist church, when I started going in, was that they described my granddad. My granddad had false teeth, right? So if he ever comes in for any working medium, immediately this is what's happened. And I've watched it many times with him, is he gets them stood back like that. So that's that militaristic stood to attention thing. And the other thing is, he will give them his false teeth. So they will come out with, oh, I've just had somebody's false teeth put in my hand. Immediately, that's a call sign to me saying, oh, Grandad, you're here. So the message that was first time delivered from him was that he feels he needs to put the balance right from what he didn't give me while he was down here. So he will always be with me when somebody needs discipline. And over the 7 or 8 years that I've been doing this now, that's what happens. So if I get a client that's coming down that's a little bit like, oh, I'm not quite sure about this, he will come in with one of my guides and they will be like disciplinary and saying they're like the militaristic, like stand up for yourself, chest out, shoulders back and all of that sort of thing, like a boss would do. And then you work out on how to take charge of the situation. But I'm telling you now, even with 7 years experience of touring up and down this wonderful country and delivering readings, do I feel comfortable with it all? No, I don't. Right. So to tell a story where you're saying that I've just had an interaction with a 7-foot black man in a dress, that is not normal speak, normal dinner time conversation. But as true as I sit here, this has all happened. Right. And so far, they haven't took me away and scraped me off into a padded cell somewhere. So it's a joyous journey, but it's not the easiest one. But yeah, I don't deal with any darkness or negativity. I don't deal with any fear-based things or anything like that. And the reason for that is because I choose not to. Yes, there is stuff out there that may well come into your subconscious. You may well attract different darker energies and things like that, but I don't, because I choose not to engage with it.
So one of the things that is tricky to teach my students when they're learning, how to be psychic, how to connect, is to separate imagination from intuition. And I just did a session with our friend Mike and Greg. We did a controlled remote viewing session. We actually did straight remote viewing. Controlled remote viewing is, the reporting process, which is very structured and very analytical, and it tricks your logical mind into going to sleep so that your intuitive mind can kind of take the wheel. That's how Lori Williams from Intuitive Specialist describes it. She wants your intuition to take the wheel, and we're just going to give your logical mind some busy work to do, some filing to do, so to speak. So, I reminded the guys when we were working with them, I said, just make sure that you describe what you're seeing. And I think when we're working with our spirit guides, that getting over, and I put up TD's comment that she thought she was hearing voices in her head, because depending on what kind of a clairvoyant or what kind of a clair you are, you may be clairvoyant, you may be clairaudient, you may be we went there. You were the one who pointed out there was like 27 of them now. Like it's not just the 5 anymore. So you may have some kind of connection with spirit that's different. If you have a piece of paper with you, have a pen, and if you describe what's coming through, you'll find that over the course of a few sessions, you're going to be describing the same thing. Maybe you're hearing the same intonation of voice. Maybe you're hearing the same, maybe there's like a little vocal fry on your spirit guide. Maybe you'll start to hear that, and you're going to go, oh, hey, how about that? Like I keep hearing the vocal fry, and he keeps saying, kumquat or pineapple, or, there's some kind of code word that's being sent to you. Those kinds of things really do help us kind of parse out. Now, of course, if you're hearing voices that are telling you to do things that are completely out of bounds in, regular society, be sure that you do reach out to someone, a professional of some sort. And that can be, A&E, or that can be, a shaman or a spirit guide. I know one of my cousins started to have all kinds of, she's an animal communicator, and she was having some stuff go on. So she started working with a shaman, and there was some stuff that was a little troubling to her. I just recently encountered another spiritual professional that said, if you don't dabble in the darkness, it's not going to come to you. And I think that that's really important for people to hear when they're trying to connect with their spirit guides. If you step into your spiritual office, if you step into your spiritual space and your meditative space and you're trying to connect with something good, if you bathe yourself in that white light, if you have that highest intent, you're not going to bring in weird, random, creepy spirits from all over the place. You're just not going to do it. The intent is really important. And I think, we have a lot of kids, you hear these stories about kids that get a Ouija board and they are trying to communicate. A lot of the time they're doing that, springboarding off watching horror movies, or having, an intent, like they're going to be like The Craft, and they're going to, make the crappy, blonde mean girl at school's hair fall out, that kind of stuff, yeah, you're not going to get good results. But if you come with the highest intent, and, I tell my students, we're here to help, we're here to heal. We're not here to, put a hex on somebody or make something, not so, level the playing field with somebody who maybe we had a problem with. If you do that, that's fine. No one ever went to church, Catholic Church, St. Paul's Cathedral, is there praying their heart out, and they say, oh, I had this religious experience and the devil came into me. Like, no one ever says that. So, with the more non-traditional spiritual pathways that we can go down. A lot of people get concerned about this. They go, oh, well, it's dark. Well, tarot cards were kind of PR'd as dark because they weren't part of the church as the church proper. And it's capital C church. No, we're not talking about just Catholic church, but could be the Church of England, could be the Methodist church, could be Baptist church, whatever. They were just kind of PR'd tarot cards and crystal gazing, those kinds of things. Like they were done by mysterious gypsies. And, I could go on and on about the gypsy tradition, the Eastern European gypsy tradition. They were nomads. They would go from place to place. And yeah, there were some bad apples in the bunch, and they would rob people, and they would hoodwink people, and they would sell trinkets and trades. And so they got a bad rap moving around, unfortunately. And they would do soothsaying and that sort of stuff. So I totally understand why some people do think that there is a level of dinginess. I'm not going to say darkness, but dinginess to this. But I think if you connect in a positive fashion, you want positive input in your life from spirit. If you step to that and you meet those spirit guides, you can bring some really rich, good stuff into your life. And I certainly am going to do it. Because I'm gonna revisit my spirit guides and see if they want to have a talk with me. And I'm gonna go upstairs. I'm gonna get my comfy chair. I'm gonna do some meditating. And Cat's Can is here. Look at that. Good morning, Cat's Can. Or good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet for you? Yes, it just turned afternoon, right?
Not for us. It's according to this, because we've not changed clocks yet. It's 20 past 11.
When do your clocks change? When does that happen?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. Okay.
For the Easter weekend.
Yeah, I just realized, like I said, we had competitions all weekend. I just realized that it's Easter next weekend, so I gotta get moving, hide some eggs. But so what are some practical things? Because we want to give you guys a nice spiritual toolkit at the end of the 6 weeks that we're doing. So spiritual toolkit items. So we've got our gatekeeper or assistant chief guide. That's how Rick describes them. So, to kind of recap, the gatekeeper is kind of the guide that we talk to, who we kind of plan out this lifetime with. Am I correct? In
security. That he's also security.
Security guard. Okay. We like security guard. And the assistant chief guide is somebody who kind of holds your hand and kind of walks through this lifetime with you.
Yeah. I mean, to tell you my two, I've got a Native American Indian that is I believe is the gatekeeper, and a soldier that was from World War One, and this is quite bizarre for me to still get my head round. Apparently, it is me from a former life.
Oh,
right. Because when this was all given to me, I've sat there and listened in amazement to it all and thinking, wow, this is a little bit too much to take in. But then they also gave me facts that I could go and research what these people's background was, and the tribe that this particular Native American Indian came from. And I researched all of that, and it frightened the whatsits out of me because it was all true. So depending on what you actually believe, and this is the thing, I never tell anybody what to believe. I just talk about my journey. This is my travels with spirit. So that is my very, very strong belief that that's how it's all sort of dropped into place in my little jigsaw puzzle, that I work with many guides. So I do a general opening up procedure and a general closing down when I'm working with spirit. And I thank all guides, angels, spirit form, as long as they're working with that highest intent and for the highest and greatest good. So in regards to anything negative, which we were talking about there, my chief wolf guide, if there's anybody coming in, and you will get this as a reader, you may well get an energy coming in that wasn't particularly pleasant while they were down here, or was intent on causing damage, or still wants to have that hold on the person. Because remember, you're just a conduit. You are just delivering whatever's being given. Now, I'll hear a chain link fence rattling, right, in the background. And that's my wolf guide patrolling. Now, if there's somebody there that's coming in, right, I cannot make a decision for any of you guys that I read for that I cannot deliver a message. That's not my right. So I bear in mind, and I explain this when I read for people, that if I've got this energy in the background, right, they are wanting to deliver this particular message. I personally don't like the feeling behind them. I will describe who they are. I'll describe what they're wanting to bring in. But you must make the decision whether you want their presence or their energy around them. So he patrols and he walks around, and then the message will either be delivered or not. It's happened probably about maybe less than 10 times, but it's still enough because their energy is draining when it comes in. They're not nice. They're not nice energies or anything like that. And normally send them on the way. Now, like with everything, there's an exception. So that energy in conjunction with the client might feel like we need to move on from that. And they normally agree. Now, I was doing a house party at somebody's house, and this energy came through, and straight away she went, I don't want nothing to do with that. You can tell them to F off from me. I'd never wanted, right, happy days.
Wait, your spirit guide said that about the person you were reading for?
Yeah, so I'm reading for the client, and the client says, I don't want nothing to do with these. Right, I want it gone. So I said to my wolf guide, right, let's shift this energy on. Now, this person, whoever it was a gentleman's energy, wouldn't go. And this is the only time in the 7 or 8 years that I've been doing this where this has happened. I felt like that around my wrist.
Oh. And
this energy wouldn't leave. So I turned round and I went, you need to go. You need to follow. But this message was insistent coming through that I need to pass on this message. I need to tell her, you need to do your job type of thing. And this is going through my head. And I'm going, you need to go. She said she doesn't want to have anything to do with you. And if you love her as much as you say that you do, you realize that that's the message that's being delivered to you. You need to go. And this grip is like iron on my wrist. I'm sat there and I could feel it like that. So I said, you need to go. Still, this grip is round my hand like this. In the end, I forgot my manners. I resorted to just being Rick. I went, right, you need to fuck off. That wasn't meant to come out. And go and leave. Because if you don't, I'm telling you now, you're going to see a different side to me, and I will not continue with this reading. I says, and I'm here for her benefit, not yours. With that, this energy just dissolved. And it's the only time where I've been physically affected while I've been reading for somebody. And it wasn't pleasant. But instantly, the energy in the room changed. Because once whatever had been bugging her or around her, because I've no doubt that had been there for a while, but once she said, I want it gone, then it was gone. But it just needed some persuading. Now, I don't do energy clearances or anything getting into that. I just, in that moment, that was my toolkit.
That's wild.
Told it gently, negotiated, and then I had to step in to protect myself. And as far as I'm concerned, it went. But you looked at her energy then, and her energy started to change as well, which is, I think, is our duty as spiritual workers, is to promote that light and upliftment. It's right. A very real-time world that we live in. But, you know, what are we here for? Are we here to appease our ego, or are we here to make a difference? And I know what my intent always is when I'm working.
Yeah. And, you know, I think, again, like spiritual upliftment, that's what we're doing on these Monday meetings, which I love. This is so great. You know, sometimes I think we get little snippets that we can kind of drop at the client. If they're not quite ready to get that message, we can negotiate with the messages that are coming through, and we can give them like a little snippet of it. So Lady of the Lake said, what can we do if we get, let me look over here. What can we do if we get a message from spirit and we don't want to put it out? Are we obviously being given the message for a reason? Yes. I had an experience with this was one of the last readings that I do a girlfriend reading where we do, we get together online and, two girlfriends, we can have like a little chat sesh. But the couples that are in committed relationships, I try to not do readings together because and this was one of those experiences when I was I guess 19 or 20. I was fairly young. I had a couple, and it was not a good marriage. It was definitely not a good marriage, and the message that was coming through from spirit was the woman needed to get away from the guy. And this Tarot Destiny has a question up there. What do you do if your client's dark? This particular situation, I should have separated them, but I think she would have paid the price later. So I'm pretty sure there was some DV going on. Like, in fact, I'm like 99.9% confident that there was some DV going on. And I should not have agreed to read for them together. He was paying. It was at a house party, and I don't know if he insisted on coming in or if they just came in. It was just not something that was registering because I would do parties for like 7, 8 hours. Like I would just keep reading for people. They would just come in, and most people were very happy or had some happy tears if we connected with a family member that had passed on. This guy was fuming that he was there. And I also got that he was resentful. They had adopted a child together. He was a beautiful kid too. And he was resentful that they adopted this child. It was just not a really good situation. And everything I wanted to do for this woman, I was too young. I was too green. I could have handled it in a different way, but then, there are certain limitations that you can do as a spiritual counselor, that, I can't say to somebody, oh, divorce your husband. You can't say that like that. It just doesn't work. You can't take on that responsibility. I'm very curious, had I separated her from her husband, what spirit would have said. What tools spirit would have given me to equip this woman for a better life. So in this particular situation, with the client that was dark, I tried to go in a different direction. And, I tried to talk about their kid, tried to do a little reading on their kid, and just thinking that would be something that was a bit more uplifting for them. But then I started to get that the husband was resentful that they even adopted this child, and they spent the money. So I did, I just closed out that reading. I was just like, I don't have a problem with saying to any of my clients, this reading isn't going in the direction. I'm not getting anything. It's not coming through. I don't have a problem saying that to them. And, here is your money. We can try this at another time. I return their money to them, of course. We can try again at another time, or you can use that money to go get a reading with a spiritualist that may connect with you better. I don't have any problem with that. I would rather, and I hesitate to call it a product, but I would rather produce a good product versus, we want people to walk away from our readings feeling good. I mean, that's really, we want them to get as many answers as we can. We want them to feel better after they come see us. That was one of the gals that I've worked with. She's a real good shadow side reader. She will tweeze out those rotten, horrible portions of yourself and hold them up to you. And I actually had to tell her, that's a great gift to have, but it's an off-putting gift to have. It's a rare client that we will get that says, yeah, tell me all the bad stuff about myself and how I have wrecked my life. Like no one really wants to hear that. They would rather hear how they can find, what I call the yellow brick road. How we can take steps to get out of that situation, whether it's a bad relationship, bad financial situation, bad relationship choices, so I think finding that yellow brick road is a much nicer way of dealing with someone who's very dark. We can tell someone who's very dark and negative, this is how you can fix it. And at the end of that, give them the steps and the tools that they need to right their ship. If they're going to do that, that's great. If they're not, then we did our part. We did what we needed to do. And I do have I have had the experience of working with individuals that I connected with because they did need some help. They did need some writing of the ship, and I'm thinking of one particular person, and they're still kind of wrangling with their life and their choices, and it just it's unfortunate. Sometimes you don't want to do the work. There's work that all of us need to do, and sometimes we don't want to do the work, and sometimes you got to roll up your sleeves, and like Rick was working in the garden. I'm sure you got really dirty. Sometimes you got to go into that spiritual garden and get kind of dirty, and your back is going to hurt and your knees are going to hurt from kneeling down and putting all the plants in place so that life can be good, so things can grow. But it's not always pleasant. Meditation is not always. I was very disturbed when I saw that Native American guide. I was like, oh, like, what is this? Like, he was on a horse at one point, took off. Like, what am I dealing with? Like, oh, do I want to go down that road? I have a distaste for Native American, or for Southwestern, aesthetic. So, is this something that's going to be unpleasant for me? It might be. Who knows? We'll have to say it won't be. Okay. But so when you're low, listen for spirit and also ask for help. That's a toolkit item for you. When your gas gauge goes down in the car, you go to the petrol station. You don't ride it till the wheels fall off. You don't wait until you're stranded on the side of the road. And if you are stranded on the side of the road, you get out with a flag and you wave somebody down to give you a ride to the gas station. So when your spirit is low, when your gas gauge goes down on your spiritual meter, ask for help. Ask for help. That is a connection. And you may like TD is clairaudient. I'm clairvoyant and clairaudient. I hear both. I hear a lot of songs like Rick did at the beginning. He said he heard the Buddy Holly song. Sometimes you will hear songs that'll come through. Spirit's going to talk to you in different ways. Sometimes you'll see a hummingbird show up. Sometimes you'll see a bluebird show up. There are different things that happen. The shamrock that I have on my wrist is a memorial tattoo for this guy Danny that I was dating. We were good friends, and we just started dating. He was really like the first person I dated after I split up with my ex-husband. And we were just kind of getting started, and he was killed in a car accident while we were on the phone. Not of his doing. A drunk driver got on the wrong side of the road and was on the highway and crashed into him, and he didn't get out of the way in time. But at the last night of his wake, I was standing there's like a carport at our funeral homes here, and I was standing out there with two of his best friends and his brother, and I don't know if I've told this story before. This crazy summer storm kicked up. And, it's not like Florida. Like Florida, you snap your fingers and all of a sudden it's a crazy storm. But this crazy summer storm showed up. It was the beginning of August. And all of a sudden it was dark and wild and wind like nothing you've ever seen. And this vintage car pulled in and was white, and I saw red interior with some white trim, but it was a vintage, big, muscly Detroit steel kind of Cadillac-y kind of thing with the top down. And the guy that got out had like this very Don Johnson kind of look. He was really robust and tan, looked like he kind of just rolled out of a, marina someplace, and had this loose knit sweater on and a great head of hair. And he gets out of the car and he walked over to us and he goes, "This is some storm, eh? This is some storm." And my friend Mark said, "Yeah, you better put that top up." And he put his hand out and he said, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And he got back in the car and took off into the storm. And my friend Mike, and they'll all testify to this. My friend Mike said that was not a normal experience. And when we all talked about it later, we all saw this person very different. And we all saw the car very differently, not terribly differently. But I think somebody saw he was bald, and somebody saw him with dark hair. And he had like kind of sandy hair. It looked like very California, very cool for me. Very Don Johnson. He looked kind of like Don Johnson. But then years later, I'd gone to psychics and I said, "How come Danny never came back?" It was like the phone went dead. And then my other buddy left the house and said, he saw a bad accident on the freeway on the way home. And I got the call at like 4:00 in the morning from one of his friends, and telling me what had happened. And it was awful. Great guy. He's the one who says smile and wave all the time. So years later, I went to a psychic event, and after seeing all these psychics, and they said they never saw him. And the psychic, it was like one of those John Edwards kind of situations where you're in like a big room and they just pick somebody to start reading. And so she started reading the woman across from me, and my friend that was with me nudged me and she goes, "She's talking to you. This is you." And so my friend gestured her over and she said, he wants. And I lost it. There were a bunch of other things she said, but he wants you to know he's the wind. And so that, I know sometimes he does reach out and touch me, and he kind of blows at me. So I think spirit sometimes talks to us that way. And Danny never had like a conduit conversation with me. But I do think that sometimes he kind of gives me a whisper in my ear. So, he's on my left right now. That makes sense.
Would you take, while you've been talking, I just want to pick up on that. We've got a spammer on here.
I see that.
I don't know. You talked about songs there, right? And all the time, I like to listen to people's stories. It's fascinating what it can reveal. Now, all I can hear in this song, in my head, playing around while you're talking, is "I got a little something for you." I got a little something for you. And it's just, and I've got three people stood in a row, and I've no idea who sings this, by the way. So this is just going on in my head that are like mimicking these moves. There's three people just sort of do it. I got a little something for you. I hadn't even got a second verse, but while you were talking, just kept getting this.
Yeah, so yeah, that's about right.
There's definitely a musical connection with because I got a little something for you. And there's a real big cheesy smile with it. I call them Joker smiles, because if you've seen the original Joker from the 60s, that real big, and it's just got real, there's an element of cheese, but it's being put on to get the response that's coming in.
Yeah, Danny,
I don't know what's going on around your chest at the moment, whether you've got a locket or something like that, but I'm being directed around your chest. So start to look out if you've got like anything to do with your chest,
Chest
energy wise.
pains. I always have chest. I'm so stressed out. I have chest pains.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that needs to be directed. I have a question for Jay though, because Majestic Oracle said he's on my left. So is there a dog with him? There's a reason why I'm asking that. Is there a dog with him? So, because Jess is of course another psychic like us. So I'm curious if she's seeing that there's a dog with him, because if there is, I'm going to start crying.
Is it really small?
Yes. So I had a Rottweiler named Buster, who is the world's most handsome dog, and I lost him to cancer, bone cancer, as most Rottweilers will go down with. Yeah. That's probably him, my big boofer. But him and Danny were like peas and carrots. They were, every time he came over, Buster is like, he looked scary as all get out, but he was super handsome. And the dog, not Danny, was not scary. Danny looked like Luca Brazzi. He's a big guy. He's half Italian, half Irish, and handsome, super cool guy. But I had two dogs. And I had a little Rottweiler and a big Rottweiler. And somebody told me I should have named them Big and Little. But it was Buster and Buffy. And Buster would just he was like a dude. Like he would just jump up on the couch next to me and be like, hey, what's up? So yeah. And I'm not surprised that he's hanging out with Danny. They were good friends. And I lost Buster. He was way too young. He was barely 8. So I'm glad that they're hanging out. I had a feeling they would be. So thank you, Jay. Thank you. So, I think, again, to go back to the church thing, like people will go to church and they will, they'll pray and they'll feel the Holy Spirit come into them. And, people get so freaked out about having more of a free form spiritualism like us. Or spirituality, not spiritualism, but they get freaked out by it because there's no guidebook. There's a bunch of guidebooks, but there's no one guidebook. So, I think people get very weirded out by it, and they think, oh, like even my aunt, who's very Catholic and very religious, she's like, you're gonna bring demons into the house, and I'm like, why do you think that it's so dark and so that we don't have any guardrails? Spiritual people and spiritual counselors like Rick and I have guardrails. We're not just like out there, just and that's something one of my son's friend's mom said to me, oh, did you ever get a reading on my kid? And I said, well, I don't just walk out with my antenna on all the time. I'm not just randomly reading people. I kind of protect myself. And we've talked, before, Rick and I, about when my late mother-in-law went to the hospital in Philly, as an emergency when her cancer came back. We had an event where she had to be rushed to the hospital. And so we rushed to the hospital the next day. And when we walked in, I was blasted with all of that energy on the cancer ward. And Greg looked at me and goes, oh, you didn't do any kind of protection or shield yourself, did you? And I was like, no. And he was like, just take a minute and get yourself together. And we went into the waiting room, and I got myself together. And then my sister-in-law came in and goes, can you do a reading for me? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. You do have to kind of protect yourself about in those kinds of environments. I don't have the antenna out all the time. I'll do readings as needed. But I'm not going to the grocery store and reading every, soccer mom that walks past me. That would be exhausting. Right, Rick? We can't do that.
We can, but we don't.
We can, but we don't. That's right. So, so anything to add at this point, Rick? Because I wanted to bring up something cool that I have I have this Secrets of the Ancestors. So I was wondering maybe we could pull some cards for people. What's your fancy?
Yeah, yeah. I'm saying I'm coming towards the end of my time on here, as I said to you.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get you going. So here I'm gonna pull one of these cards for you.
Oh, can I just pull up that comment there from Jess? Yeah. I've told a story very, very quickly before that the first time where it actually happened to me, where it was, I wouldn't say out of my control, but I wasn't expecting it. I was doing a 10K run. And I'm not the greatest of runners. I'm not very motivated to do any training. And I was running up this hill, and there was a group of young ladies, and very attractive young ladies, I might add. And as I'm going past, my guide came in and said, and brought somebody through who went, right, you need to tell her that she needs to sort out that strap on her right knee, because it's been a bit troublesome. So can you imagine the scenario as an everyday guy that is wary of women at the best of times, just going, excuse me, love, there's a gentleman there that's just told me that you need to keep a watch on your knee because he's talking in my ear as I'm running past you. Well, it'd have got her running quicker, wouldn't it? Yeah, away from me. So it is sometimes where you have to be a little bit on the side of saying, right, thank you very much for bringing that through, but I am not working. This is why I use the waistcoat, the vest as a signal to spirit that if I'm doing an event somewhere, then they can bring through what they like, because this is work uniform. But just to pick up very briefly on what you were saying there, you wouldn't go out and do a welding job without the adequate sort of gloves and gauntlets on and things like that. So this is where I think a lot of people get stuck with all of this spiritual work. It is a job. And I can truthfully tell you that I've done 12-hour days grafting and doing proper hard work and not come home even as percentages tired as what I do when I've had a full day of readings, when I've done a show somewhere. So it's about protecting yourself from, I know sometimes we can be a little bit, I'm trying to find the right words where we can make fun a little bit. We can have that self-deprecating sense of humor, but mark my words, as I sit here, I'm an honest guy, that this can be hard work. It can be more draining than any sort of conventional day's work, but we don't always take it that way, because naturally people who work along this thing, if you're not working in your ego, you're a giver. You want to help people. You want to give up their upliftment. So you've got to take yourself seriously. And part of taking yourself seriously is to put in the right amount of training, the right amount of energy, conversation, and definitely about protecting yourself as well. So sometimes you guys will come in, but they have to be told no. So it's about shutting down as well as opening up as well. So I'll shut up because you've got cars.
No, but like, could you imagine if you went to the grocery store and you came out and there was a mechanic fixing your car or detailing your car or something? Like, how awesome would that be? Yeah, but we're not doing that. We're not just randomly, it's not like X-ray vision, like we're, peeking into people's souls all day long. So so let's do this. I'm going to pull an ancestor card for you, because you were so kind and you took a peek. You and Jess took a peek at the people that are around me. So let's pull one of these for you. And I've never used this deck. I just opened it up. You got the Peacemaker. So we'll give you persistent patience. That's curious. So don't force anything. You made it. Consider this a hug and a reminder. It's all working out for you, but just take it easy. So I think I'm not going to read the entire thing. So, I think once we get to a point where we are in agreement with the spirit guides, and we're in an agreement that we're going to have some kind of discussion, I think things will come very easily to us, and we'll be offered those messages of help and offerings of peace to our clients. And I think that is something that you do, Rick. I think You are a peacemaker of sorts for people. You lend yourself to soothe and heal them. So I think that this is very true. I think your ancestors are offering that up to you, where you are the peacemaker. So let's pull one for Jess. Majestic Oracle. If you are not subscribed to her, please click on over to her and subscribe to her for her live streams as well. And Jess, we're getting the Father of Fire, Passion Ignited for you. This is an exciting card, and we will read a little bit on that real quick. So if you have a yes or no question, Papa Fire steps forward and says the answer is a clear yes. The time is now for that big passionate vision. All things are possible. You are possible. Very curious. And we'll pull, who would you like to pull one for?
Let's just go back through Foxy, because I see Foxy's in here supporting and representing us all again. And Foxy is amazing. He really is a good guy. So yeah, card for Foxy.
This is an amazing card for him too. So Altar of Water, love overflowing. So if you're not subscribed to Foxy, go on over and subscribe to him, Foxy313. Foxy is, whenever he shows up in the chat, my face breaks into a big smile. He graced my live the other day. We had some connectivity issues, but he did grace my live the other night, and it was so awesome to have him on there. I have never met someone that so easily generates joy and happiness on their channel. And I don't even care what he's talking about. I don't care if it's classic cars. I don't care if it's Shaq. I don't care if it's trains. I just find so much joy from him. So, Foxy, this is you. Divine love, romantic love, communal love, every kind of love is pouring through you. This is the beginning of something beautiful. Make way for the joy of new love. This new relationship can be a friendship or a new suitor. It could even be a career partnership that you love, or even a renewed love for an already existing person or situation in your life. Either way, you are worthy and deserving of this magnificent new blessing. And I think, you know, with all the stuff that we see online, and with sometimes the people that we encounter online, I know, Paula Mel and Trevor and Avid Gardner and some of our really, really superb, delightful people here on this platform are dealing with some negativity. And I think the best way to dispel dark is through light. And I think that Foxy is a bright, shining gaslight. I don't mean gaslight in the bad way. I mean it in the romantic turn of the century kind of way. He is a beautiful light that we all flock to. So we're all very, very attracted to. So Foxy, my favorite gentleman, we think you are fantastic, and you're such an amazing piece of the puzzle for all of us here. I'm delighted that I met you through, I'm not even sure who I met Foxy through, if it was through Trevor or if it was through the Hutches, but I just think that you are a delight, and I think that everybody should have a little Foxy in their life. Let's put it that way. So is there anyone else we want to give Grumpy one? So Grumpy, while he's hanging out and having a great day. Grumpy, he gets the Root of Air Explore. And we know he's all over the globe and meeting famous people and royal people and all kinds of things like that. So let's see, 33. I'll read this one quickly because I want to give Jess one too. You are feeling ready for adventure. Where will your curiosity lead you? He already said in the comments we should have a live where we talk about our experiences. I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think we'll coordinate, you and I, for a time. This ancestor reflects part of you that is hungry for knowledge and truth. She's a reflection of you. You are driven, relentless, and on the move. With a notebook full of crazy schemes and plans, you need people around you who believe in you and who will ground you. Now, we believe in you. I don't know if we're such a grounding effect, but we do believe in you. So, again, another amazing person that I met through my online community. And Jess, this one is for you. And I think this will be the last one. We did do Jess already, didn't we?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I'm like losing my mind. All right. So let's do one for TD just to give her a little, because she's always here with her wrench and uplifting everybody. TD, we got one for you. Altar of Fire. It's good juju. Beautiful card for you. Good morning, Sharon. I see you there in the chat.
I've just pulled one for TD as well in my Oracle Angel cards, and this will be my last one there. And wisdom and objectivity are important now. Stay in your integrity. A situation that calls for honest and open communication. So the message that's been rattling around in my head for you since we came on is it's time to get out of your own way.
And that makes sense with this one too, because Altar of Fire, good juju, be inspired. Great things are happening. Open yourself to opportunities and unexpected choices. I think that makes a lot of sense. The cards speak well, don't they? Like, when I did my live the other day, I was reading on the Royals, of course, and I kept getting the same cards, like in two different readings. And then I tried to bring Deb on. It was and Jess says the same thing. TD, it's time, girlfriend. So yeah. So this has been great. So again, just to recap, we were talking about connecting with our spirit guides. Rick and I shared our personal experiences with our guides. We are working on a 3-session course that the two of us are going to lead. It'll be a private course. We may do a little, a little something that you can do on your own, but it would be a course where you work with us 2-on-1. So we're going to work on the terrestrial side and also on the energetic side, because Rick likes to focus on the energetic side. I focus on the terrestrial side. But your spiritual toolkit for today, find that gatekeeper, find your assistant or chief guide. Find your transitory guides. Those are your people that you've had in this lifetime who may dip in and dip out and, give you some guidance, like my grandmother standing there with her hand on the sink talking to me. Also, your guides will take a step back sometimes when they want you to take the wheel. So when you're low, listen for spirit and ask for help. I'm going to be doing that today. I'm going to be going into a heavy meditation after this, just seeing if I can get spirit to heal me, because I use spirit to heal others most of the time. So, but I hope you guys don't mind me in my pajamas. I get up real early at like 5 a.m. to like get prepped for this. So I may keep doing that if that's okay.
You look radiant. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, make it truly a morning show. I have great pajamas, so I might keep doing that, but we will see. Next week, we're going to be talking about manifesting abundance. And everybody always thinks that is manifesting money. It's not necessarily manifesting money. It is manifesting a lot of good things in your life. So it could be job opportunities. It could be manifesting puppies. Like you could be maybe, not pet hoarders, but maybe you want to get, some new puppies. Maybe you need a puppy. Gregopedia is like rolling over in bed right now and going, I need a puppy. We're actually going to be house sitting, or we're going to be babysitting my sister-in-law's puppy. So his name is Duke. He is a 6-month-old Great Dane mix. So he's like all leggy and cute. So I may do a cool thing. Grumpy said, how about ghost manifestation? That is, if you want to manifest, some of that, like, yeah, sometimes you can do that as well. So, when we're manifesting, It's something that we want to bring to our life. We want to magnetize things to our life. So we're going to be talking about that next time, overcoming blocks and poverty mentality. And it doesn't have to be, again, just money things. It can be, a poverty mentality. Like, my spirit guides won't talk to me. My psychic intuition won't kick in. Having that poverty mentality, we want to turn that around, and we want to start to have affirmations and expectations of bringing that into us and manifesting. So, all right, guys, we will see you all later. Rick's got to go. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.
I will catch you later on as well, and we'll chat later.
We'll talk on Facebook.
Much love to you all. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.